guys and a mic. It's Jim Ryan, Mark Rizzo, and boy, do we have a special guest this week. We're getting back to music with the one and only Dave Sholin. The Duke is here.
Oh my gosh, and you guys, this was quite the operation, because when I got out of makeup, you sent over the makeup man. You sit in the green room, was incredible. The snacks were perfect. You guys are.
We spare no expense.
First class.
I'm sure you've heard, or we haven't told you, that we're expanding. We've got a big budget. We're giving a car away to our 1 millionth person. Is that it, Jim?
Yeah. Yes.
And I think we're up to 266 viewers. So we've got a way to go.
Did you choose the Smart Pop or the Doritos? Which way did you go?
I went with Cheetos. I love Cheetos.
So, Jim, I think we should start with talking about why he is who he is. And maybe, Dave, you could tell us about your beginnings, as we've done with so many others before you, like Lee Leipzner and Rick Stone and some of our radio pals.
Yeah, listen, I was like so many. You could have a long list of guys who were into radio as kids. That was me.
That's me. I was there with you.
You sat in the room. You did your radio thing. You had the turntable set up. All of that stuff. Mom's
hairbrush was a good microphone.
Exactly.
That's what I did in the mirror. I used to be David Cassidy growing up. I used to sing in the mirror.
Yeah. But as a kid, really young, I was like 5, 6. I did some TV stuff. I was like, shopping center openings, and I was like a little, singer that I loved doing that stuff. I had a TV commercial for a bread company in San Francisco, and just it was like a novelty act. But then once you get to 8 or 9, the novelty's over. You got to move on. But it was like the opening to being appearances, and I love doing that stuff. So from there, I always loved, I was the kid running around telling kids about a new song. I loved radio. It was like I was hooked. So that's what got me into all of this. And then I went to a great school, San Francisco State, where there's a long list of people that went to San Francisco State in broadcasting. It was a big thing. So after SF State, I'm there one summer, just as I graduate, and I see an ad or a listing for an opening at the station, San Jose. And I'm going, wow, I don't even have to go that far, San Jose. But it was like weekends, but I said, I'm breaking through. Right. I can stay in the Bay Area. I don't have to go somewhere. And I did have an offer from another station that was not that close, but close enough. But I figured I'm going for this one. So that's what I did. I actually had no tape. They said, send your tape. Well, I hadn't been on the air. So outside of college, I was a college PD, and you get all of that. So after this tape, I go to a friend's bedroom who had all this recording stuff, and I just made up an air check. I sent it off. I get this phone call, and they said, come on down. And it turns out what they were doing, auditioning different people. They'd have you come in, and you'd be on the air for an hour. And if they liked you, you'd come back and do 6 hours, midnight to 6. And then they record your last hour. So, oh boy, this is fun. So that's how it began. And they had like 10 different people. By the time I came in there, it was like 2 a.m. And the person on the air became one of my close friends, but he was a giant guy with a big beard, big John Betancourt. God rest his soul. He's a great guy. And
I know John from RCA, right? Was he from RCA?
That's the RCA. There's 2 different John Betancourts. Okay. Although this John Betancourt was in the record business. He left radio and he worked for Casablanca for a while, and so he just became a good friend. But he didn't know me, and it was like, all right, you're the next guy. Come on in, sit down. Here's the board. Here's the music. I'll see you later. I'll go into the production room and record you. That was it. So I get this call back. We want you to come in to do the 6 hours. And from there, I got the word and broke me into the business. So it went from there to they moved me up to music director. But I worked with some great people. Rick Carroll was there before K-Rock, and he kind of led the way in the alt world. So
radio's proving ground, the midnight to 6 hour.
It was, yep. And then did midnight to 6. I did nights. And then got to afternoon drive and became music director. And a kind of a slash, they didn't really have a PD. Our manager, the owner of the station, who was an amazing guy, was kind of involved. It was like a programming by committee. So we had a couple
Imagine
of staff,
that.
a staff announcer. Yeah, it all worked. But the music, they said, you're the music guy. You're always hanging around. You got to be the music director. So it got me really noticed nationally, and through the trade, the magazines. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll get to that part of your career in a little bit too.
But Dave, this is where you started, right? Like I did, where it was a card file and you moved the cards, or there was certain colored dots on the 45s, and you put them in certain stacks, and it wasn't all computerized like it is these days.
Nope.
I explain this sometimes to younger folks that I worked with, especially at Sirius XM for 22, and they look at you like, you did what? What?
Yeah, exactly.
You cut reel tape and edit it out so you could put a phone call on the air? I mean, it's just, they're just like floored by that.
Well, floored by the fact that you could this was, if you pull out some of these old music surveys and see the jock staff, 6 to 9, 9 to noon, noon to 3, 3 to 6.
Yeah.
The big shift was 6 to 10. Wow, that's 4 hours.
Right.
Then you had 10 to 2, and then 2 to 6 in the morning. That is how they staffed a station.
Although Z100 in New York, their night guy originally was 7 to 10 at night. I remember when Jack the Whack did it.
7 to 10.
And
wow.
Kid Kelly did 7 to 10 because they were literally on the phone like every song. They were doing phones. So that 3-hour show was like doing a 5-hour, 6-hour normal show because it was very phone intensive.
Hey, Dave, I got 3 to 5 once in court, but that's a different story. But wait, I want to back up. I want to back up to what you said. When you were working midnight to 6, I remember all my radio guys that would tell me they start at midnight to 6, and they would tell me about some crazy female listeners that would either come to the station or call on the private line. And I have to go there with you, Dave. You got that deep, sexy radio voice working midnight to 6. Let me have a story here. What happened? These 2 crazy blondes showed up, or what happened?
Too many stories. We don't want to go there. No, believe me, it does happen.
It does happen.
Wow. You get the calls, and it was early on and at midnight to 6 for me. And I remember who it was. I remember her name.
Nice.
And it was fun. But that's all I can say. It was a lot of fun. I didn't
get that at the records. I didn't get that at the record label. There were no blondes hanging around that wanted to come talk to the AC promotion guy. It just didn't work out that way.
Oh, come on, Rizzo. I know there's a story you're not telling us. You're holding back.
Yeah. Well, just before you got on, and I'm sure this will be topical when we do put this up, we were talking about Puffy, and we can get into that in a second. But I was saying at Arista, it was the beginning of Puffy when Clive signed him to his record deal. But I mean, you just knew this guy was
P. Diddy, my friend. P. Diddy.
P. Diddy, Puffy. I know Miss Puffy. But my question to Jim is, where do you get 1,000 bottles of baby oil? And I want to have a room big enough that I could put 1,000 bottles of baby oil in.
I don't even want to picture that in your room.
Is that something you buy at Costco? You fill your cart with baby oil? I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, it not only it was the lubricant baby oil. That's quite a combination. Maybe you mix them together. I don't know.
2 guys and a mic. We're here with Dave the Duke Sholin, longtime radio, worked in records. He still does radio. He knows everybody and did everything. Now, you did the San Jose, right?
Yeah, San Jose. So this was, and I was going to say the trade thing really helped me between the Gavin magazine, Cal Rudman, who put out
FMQB.
He would give me a lot of ink, and I got noticed by, people around the country, and one of them happened to be Paul Drew, who was the program director at KFRC and then became the head of RKO. He's done a lot of things, of course.
Wow.
Paul was a legend. He's a legend. And so he actually offered me a position in San Francisco. I couldn't believe it. I go, wow. But I didn't think I was ready. So I passed. I said, no, I don't think
wow.
I'm going to be, it's not my time. And sure enough, a couple of years later, another opening, they were changing a lot of things at the station at KFRC. And they had just hired Dr. Don Rose from Philadelphia. And I got the call and said, okay, this is it. Let's do it. We want you to be the music director. We want you to do, I actually had an interesting, I was doing a weekend show late at night, and the weekend, so my days off would be Thursday and Friday. So I was music director Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I came in, and then everything changed, and I went from the weekends and got into 10 to 2 at night. And I kept doing the music. And sure enough, it was not long after that, about 3 years later, that they wanted me to come to LA to be the national music person for RKO, which at that time was that was the big chain.
That was the iHeart of the day, huh?
7 a.m. and 7 FM. That was it. But we were in major markets. So it was LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, of course, and Memphis. So
610 KFRC.
We had great stations, and I was able to go to LA, even though I commuted. I didn't want to live in LA, so I held on for a while until I finally bit the bullet and moved. I commuted for about a year and a half. It was great. I just flew in on a Tuesday, did everything, came back on Thursday night, and then worked out of San Francisco for a while, and then finally moved to LA.
So you were
How
doing
long were you in LA for?
I was there from it was a late 70s, 77 to about late part of 1980. And then moved back.
So you're at KFRC, and then you go to LA, but then you go back to KFRC because you programmed it right towards the end of their run as Top 40.
Yeah.
But there was some legendary talent that went through that building. Not only Dr. Don Rose, you had Broadway Bill Lee, which I don't think he was calling himself Broadway at that point. He was just Bill
Broadway.
Lee.
He was just Bill Lee. Well,
wasn't Chuck Geiger there too?
Chuck Geiger was there. We had our staff over the years from, you can name Chuck Buell, you can go through, Michael Spear. I went through 3 different PDs. Each one had their own style, and they were great. Michael Spears, then Les Garland came in before he went to TV and started that with Bob Pittman. So
if I'm not mistaken, Dave, correct me, isn't Les Garland the DJ voice you hear on that Starship song?
He is. You are correct.
Yep.
Numerous people have called me and thought I was the guy, but it was Les for sure. And we connect all the time. And then Jerry Cagle came.
Yeah, sure. Jerry.
And put his own spin on the station. He brought in Broadway Bill and Geiger and some great talent. We were really lucky. And he had one of the things that station had, and in fact, Randy Michaels always mentioned this to me, that the audio chain, he goes, I don't know what you guys do, but it has got to be one of the best sounding stations I have ever heard. It was a great compliment, but he was right. Phil Lerza, the late Phil Lerza, our chief engineer, was amazing. Bob Canner, who was originally before Phil was our chief. We just had, it was really a big part of that station, production and engineering.
And you worked with a guy who I ended up working with at Sirius much later than when you did, but Walter Sabo.
Yes, that's right.
Walter was your consultant for RKO, and then he was at Sirius XM for a while. Actually, I was with him when it was just Sirius before the XM merger, and then for a little while after the merger. But
now Walter Sterling. He's Walter
Yes.
Sterling.
Good guy, though. Great guy.
Mhm.
So there you are. You
Yeah,
do
great people.
KFRC towards the end, right? They decided to drop top 40. So what do you do at that point?
Well, initially, what happened was, and the last song we played, by the way, Jack Silver was on the air. It was right before Dr. Don came on, and the last song was Journey, Lights. When the lights go out in the city, the lights are gone. That's it. And so I basically was offered we were going to change this format to a, I guess, for lack of anything else, people know it as probably music of your life. You know, Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and hits. So they said, would you just be in this transition period? I wasn't planning on staying for that long, but I knew this music, it'd be fun to do, put together, you know, some of the legendary air talent in San Francisco at KSFO. That was the big, they were the king of the hill when it came to that format in San Francisco for years. Giant with big stars. Don Sherwood was the morning man. Jack Carney, Al Jasbo Collins, all these people. Well, the people that were around, we were able to get them as part of this team. So we put together a very tight list. In fact, Walter Sabo was involved in that as well. We put a very tight list together, and we were playing the hits, and the numbers skyrocketed. The audience was over 60, but they were huge. So we went from like number one. It was very successful. Tony Bennett came in to be our spokesperson. We ran TV spots with Tony, and we did auditorium tests, which for anybody that's done those tests know what it's like when you're doing a CHR and you have people come in. This was a different crowd.
The Walker Brigade.
They took the surveys. Everybody sat down. Oh yeah, it was fantastic. And the number one testing song, without question, was Glenn Miller, "In the Mood."
Wow.
But we used that as a theme. So Tony, in the mood, to be in the background, and Tony would be talking. Oh, I got a great station, and we put these spots together, and he would not take a dime. And Tony Bennett was just the best. He goes, no, any station that's playing this music, I'm here to help you. And we got him a room at the Fairmont, and a limo, and that was it. So
how long did you stick around with that incarnation of the station?
That was about a year.
Okay.
And then what happened?
Because previous to that, while KFRC was CHR, while all that was happening, I was at Gavin. When I came back, when I left RKO, I got the call from the Gavin office. Ron Fell and Bill Gavin himself wanted me to come up, and they said, we have Gary Taylor, who was the managing editor and did Top 40. He was leaving. So I thought to myself, I go back to San Francisco. Here's a great opportunity. And that's what I did. So I would I was doing two jobs at once. I was doing 9 to noon in San Francisco on the air. And then I'd walk over to the Gavin office and do that from whatever, grab a quick bite. And between noon and or 12:30 or 1 o'clock till 8 o'clock, I'd be talking to everybody all over the country, and loved it. It was great. That was
double duty.
It was double duty, and I treasure every one of those things. So there were a lot of things that went on, and in between about 8 years after that, I got the call from Rob Sisko and Joe Interante to be the host of Countdown USA and take over for John Leader, who had been the host of the show, which was syndicated by Westwood One. So that was another. I just love doing that as well.
Now you're still living in Northern California at this time, right?
Still living in the Bay Area. I was in Pacifica. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's rare that somebody gets to spend most of their career in one market and consider that a major market.
Absolutely. It was, people say, how did you do that? I got lucky.
Yeah.
That is all you can say. I was very fortunate to be able to do all that.
Hey, Dave, I'm just going to jump in about the Gavin Report because I don't know how many people actually remember it. I mean, it was a great publication. I used to deal with Ron Phil on the AC side. And as you know, I was pretty blessed to have won numerous awards, which are in the garage. If you want to sell them, I'm looking on eBay to sell them. But the most important thing that I remember for the Gavin Report, and this is why I'm on the podcast, is that we would entertain some of the radio guys. Of course, back when there were no compliance and issues at a place called Mitchell Brothers. I don't know if you ever heard of that, Dave.
Sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. I think
because I always thought that would be what heaven looked like if I died and went to heaven. But back in the day, Jim, in fact, they made a movie about it because the two people that owned it were brothers, and they ended up, I think they killed each other, right? Or one killed the other one.
One shot the other. Mm-hmm.
Well, it was basically like, what would you call in New York where Howard Stern would go to strip clubs, the famous one that he used to
Oh, Scores.
Yeah, it was basically Scores before that, but it was a little bit more. I remember there was
a little bit more. Yeah.
I mean, of course, I was never there. I only heard from other people that there was actually a flashlight room that was pitch black, and they would give customers flashlights, and you would point the flashlight in the direction of where the action was taking place. I don't know. I only heard about this.
Yeah, right.
When I think of the Gavin Report, besides the fun and games of the beautiful hotel, the St. Francis Hotel, and of course the awards and the occasional stories I would hear about the Mitchell brothers. So that was my recollection of the Gavin Report, which went on for many years. Many years. It was a great.
Are you hinting that Dave had a lot to do with the planning of these extravagant parties and all this stuff? Is that what you're hinting at, Mark?
He was a top 40 guy. I was just the AC guys. So the AC guys were not allowed in Mitchell Brothers. That was mostly the top 40 guys that were much cooler.
We could have held a couple of meetings at the Mitchell Brothers, and they would have been. I think a lot of their customers, they love that part. But the Gavin conventions coming to town, watch out. Here we are. But the Copenhagen room, I know them all. I was there. The Ultra room, the shower. It was a Disneyland for.
That's what I said. It was incredible. I bet you a lot of ads were being.
A lot of paper ads were going on.
A lot of ads were worked out.
Right.
I think a lot of programmers. I mean, in nowadays, with the way record labels are and accounting and everything, there would be no way you'd be able to get a receipt through for entertaining at a men's club.
No.
But I mean, back then it was something that just was fun.
Two guys and a mic. It's our episode number 15, and we're here with Dave the Duke Sholin, longtime radio programmer, worked at Gavin. He's just been a great friend, and I love discussing music with Dave. We do it all the time, and then we get into football because we participate in a football pool together. But it's great talking to music with him. And I actually visited with Dave and had dinner with Dave in the town he lives in now, Bend, Oregon, when I was out there with my lovely wife, Kathleen, for a quilt show in Sisters, which is real close to Bend. Yeah. Bend is remarkable for, I don't know if it's still there, but when I was there, was having the last actual open Blockbuster video store.
It's there.
Wow.
It's there. It's operating. It's busy. People come.
Who rents videos anymore? But I guess people
they
still
do there. They do there.
It's a Netflix show, a movie. You can see it. The last Blockbuster. It's on Netflix. And
it's in Bend, Oregon.
Covers Bend. But
how did you end up in Bend, Oregon, Dave? How'd you end up there?
I'll give you that story, but I just wanted to let Jim know. I was going to ask, do you know who lives in Sisters?
Who lives in Sisters?
Football.
No, I don't.
Joe Montana.
Dan Fouts.
Dan Fouts.
So
Dan
close.
Fouts lives in Sisters, absolutely. And
it's such a cool little town.
Drew
really
Bledsoe's in Bend. Drew Bledsoe's here, coaches the high school team, and so.
Is Drew originally from Oregon?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think he's from Washington. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive on that.
The whole area is absolutely beautiful. Bend, Sisters. We stayed there, the Sisters Mountains, and Kathleen had entered a quilt. Every year they have this huge quilt show there, and they hang them up all over town, sides of buildings and everything. And her quilt was on display there, and it really was a cool weekend. And Dave was nice enough. We got together and had some dinner. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was a very cool restaurant.
It was called Mitchell Brothers.
No, it wasn't.
No, we went. That's the tree is in the middle.
Yeah, the tree is in the middle of the restaurant.
It's called Pine Tavern. It's been there for, I don't know, 80 years. A long time.
They built the restaurant around this tree. It's pretty cool.
It sounds pretty.
And you look at the river. You're right there. The river, the Chutes River comes right through. Yeah, it's a great town. So how I got here was my good friend, now no longer with us, and I'm sure Mark, Jim, you may remember Mr. Ed Lambert.
Yes.
Mr. Ed was in Dallas forever.
Right.
He's from Sacramento. He was from Sacramento. So he worked in Minneapolis with Brian Phillips at KGWB. And in the sales side of things was the owner of our station here in Penn, Jim Gross. His family's been in radio forever, and they own the first smooth jazz station in Orlando. And so he and his brother, who has since sadly passed away, but Jim is, got a hold of Ed and brought him to Bend to be the operations guy and do a little air work, but pretty much overseeing the stations. And the biggest one is KSJJ, where I do afternoons. So that's where Ed said, "Do you ever think about being in Bend?" Oddly enough, my wife and daughter took a road trip about 4 or 5 years before that. As they go through the Northwest, they come back raving about this town. So we found the most magical place. You won't believe it, Bend, Oregon. So sure enough, Ed calls me and talks to my wife, and I go, "You won't believe this, Debbie. This is like Ed says, how about Bend, Oregon? Let's go."
Wow.
So that's exactly how it all came together. So,
and how long have you been there now?
I've been about 12 and a half years. Got here in 2012, and we had a hot AC that I was tracking as well. So that is now a classic rock, and I do that 10 to 2, which is only it's a few breaks, but it's fun playing, everything from Zeppelin to Creedence to, everything in between.
And you do afternoons
afternoons live on KSJJ.
And who's programming that?
That is our operations man, and we have two different people involved in that. But Brian Mobley has been here for quite a while. He's great guy, and he handles the programming for that.
All right.
So Dave, when we were at Capitol Records, how did that fit into all of this? Because you were in San Francisco, and then they hired you at Capitol, but you still worked out of San Francisco, and then you went to Bend?
I have because we skipped over a couple of things. Because when I left
Gavin
in '98, and one of my closest friends in life, Johnny Barbas.
Sure, I love Johnny.
Johnny is amazing, and we go back to. In fact, I met him in San Jose. He was he had the long hair. He was just out of the army, and was working for Shelter Records. Just as a newbie, he didn't really know much about promotion or anything else, but through a lot of connections, Denny Cordell and Shelter Records and Leon Russell.
He was very tight with Leon through Elton as well.
Absolutely. So Johnny brings in this song by an artist named J.J. Cale, who wrote Cocaine, a lot of big hits. So he brings in a song, and I go, it's not happening. So I flip it over, and I go, wow, I love this song. And it was Crazy Mama by J.J. Cale. And from there, that song happened. KFRC jumped on it, because at that point, KFRC was watching our list. So it kind of helped me launch myself into San Francisco. But it really helped launch Johnny into the music business. He and his brother, Dino, who was
Who
also
passed away. Yeah.
passed
Nice man.
away. One of the classics, one of the greatest. So, and they grew up in the Bay Area. They were from
Right.
the East Bay. I grew up in the West Bay, but they were in Alameda. So Johnny and I connected, became, close, which we are today. And he called and said, would you think about leaving Gavin and coming into the music business and be our VP of promotion and Joe Rigatelli was there, and Island. He was head of our
Now I remember. Now I remember we were there. Yep.
And you don't have to move to New York. We want you basically to be on the road most of the time. You could be anywhere. So you want to stay where you are as long as you, want to fly, see everybody, see the people and be our, it's kind of like being an ambassador. And
Nice.
it was great. I mean, we had a ball. And it didn't last long. They changed. Hologram was changing things. And they brought a new staff in. And shortly after that, my other close friend who I've known since San Jose days was Bert Baumgartner.
There you go.
So he's at Capitol, and I made the transition to the Tower and Capitol, and worked with some great people. Bert, of course, we were having a ball. We had the first Coldplay. I remember,
I was there, yeah.
Coldplay, and you remember Yellow, and you remember the phone calls. Oh boy, no, we just don't get it. But
I had a lot of people that didn't like it. I mean, I spent time with Chris back in New York, and I always tell the story that we took him to POJ, and I think I've said this on previous podcasts, and he told me, which I guess looking back, he kept his word that he would never raise his children in the U.S. I said, okay.
Wow.
So you're working at the Capitol building in LA. So you moved back to LA?
No. I was able to do that out of San Francisco. I'd go to the Tower probably about once a month.
That's a cool building. That really is a cool building.
Oh, it was the greatest. Just to go there, go to this, just going through that recording studio and knowing who, I mean, Frank, you have to know anymore.
How long were you there? How long were you there, Dave?
That was about 2 years. It was about 2 years, and then that translated into a job at EMI. EMI began what they call the collective. So a lot of these other labels, Blue Note and numerous others, that was run by Kevin Carroll, another good guy.
Sure, he's another nice guy. Correct.
Kevin is great. So he, in fact, Kevin has one of the great lines of all time that I still remember. When I was lucky enough and honored to get the award at the Conclave, you know which one we're talking about, the Rockwell.
No, I guess I didn't win that one. Bastards.
The Rockwell Award is for mentors, which I was really proud to get
nice,
because that's something I always love to do, and try to help people that are coming up in the business. So I got this Rockwell, and I was doing the acceptance, and Kevin just told me, he says, "Okay, Duke, you gotta. This is when you accept this award, just don't make it a Sholinoscopy. give us the highlights." So
just give us the meat and potatoes.
It was a great bit of advice, but I love Kevin. So we had a great staff with a lot of fun. Working songs like Stacy's Mom, which as soon as Kevin played that, he goes, brings me to the office. He goes, "Wait till you hear this, Fountains of Wayne." Oh man, but none of these songs, as you know, Mark, from being on that side, they're not easy, including Coldplay, because Yellow. How many times we had all seen Coldplay play for us at the Radio City Music Hall, so we kind of knew how
there was
big
talent there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when I look back on the times at Capitol, I think it was there about 7 years, and all the changes that went on, we never had an easy record. And I used to make jokes that for us to make the year, we have to wait for, and this will go into another story with you a bit later, we have to wait for another Beatle to die to make the year. But times are tough. I mean, we grinded out the Liz Phair. We had I don't know. I mean, we had Dan Hubbard and all those other folks that were coming in and out of Capitol, and it was a bit erratic, to say the least. But I didn't get to work with Bert enough because that's when the changes were coming down. But I was somewhat protected because of Roy Lott, who brought me over. And then obviously he left, and it just was Lisa Marie Presley. That's all I'm going to say about my time at Capitol Records. Okay.
Two guys and a mic. It is Dave the Duke Sholin here, longtime radio record label guy. He's got a really cool connection that we're going to actually hold him over. We're going to do another episode with Dave because that alone needs it. But we do a top 5 all the time. And Dave, we didn't tell you what this is, but I think you could rattle this right off the top of your head. Your top 5 favorite air personalities ever.
Oh boy.
There you go. Got to keep it to 5, Dave. Got to plug all your friends.
Just keep it to 5. I know it's not easy, but you can do it.
It's impossible. How do you do that? How do you do the top 5? I mean,
all right. If you want to modify it, give me your 5 favorite radio stations of all time.
You named one of them. That was Broadway Bill Lee.
Yeah.
Dr. Don Rose for sure, since we worked together for a long time. Because when Dr. Don came to San Francisco, the knock was going to be, oh man, Sanford, he's way too corny. It'll never happen in San Francisco.
No, it happened.
Paul Drew knew that Dr. Don, he studied the Bay Area when he got there because he programmed KFRC, so he knew. He goes, yeah, San Francisco, Marin, that's not our audience. Our audience is San Jose, the East Bay, Concord, all those places, anywhere USA. It is not what people, and he was totally right.
Yeah.
Dr. Don lit up the market, went to #1. And
Nice.
In fact, when Les Garland was there, it was #1. I think that was it. We beat KGO, which was the big news talk, and it beat that for the first time. It was like in every demo. It was an amazing time. So Dr. Don's in there. I definitely got to put my man Scott Shannon.
Of course.
Shannon. Yep.
The DJ.
Super Shan.
Super Shan is and we have a funny story that we've been going over for years and years. There was a song by, you can't pick them all. This was a song that we put on in San Francisco by Dickie Lee, who's the mid 70s, called 9,999,000 Tears. So the song went on, and still to this day, Scott still talks about it. Hey, Duke, how's that Dickie Lee record doing for you? Oh, okay. Goodbye, Scott. See you later.
Thanks, Scott. The man who called my house, and literally Kathleen picked up and she goes, hello, and he says, can I speak to the DJ at the house, please?
That's right. He is the DJ. But that list of people on the air, the people that influenced me, I mean, in San Francisco, Tom Donahue, there's just a long list. And the people that are around today, there's some amazing talent. But to come up with 5 is impossible.
Yeah, there's one guy I called one of the main reasons why I wanted to get into radio. But he was totally more of an East Coast guy, but Dan Ingram.
Dan Ingram.
Love Dan Ingram.
Great
Yep.
radio personality, Kimo Sabi. Dave Sholin is here, and we are doing Two Guys and a Mic. Please like and subscribe. It is free to subscribe. We love comments too. You can get us on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we put up a new episode. And Dave, we want to thank you. We are going to do another episode with you for next week because there is, as Mark alluded to, another really historic connection that you have with what arguably, and a lot of people would say you're crazy for even arguing it, the biggest band ever in the world of rock and roll. So again, thanks for being here on Two Guys and a Mic, and keep listening because next week's episode, you're not going to want to miss the story the Duke is going to tell there. Okay.
Hey, Jim, before you go, I just wanted to add, he talked about the top 5 air talents. I had the top 5 talents at Mitchell Brothers. Ruby, Trixie, Cherry, Vicky, and Becky. Those were the top 5.
Oh, you
so my list is a little different than yours.
You weren't there for Marilyn Chambers. That was a special. That was
right. That was part of the movie. That was the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, really? That was a special event. Oh, yeah, I was there. But there is one air talent that I've got to mention because I just went to his birthday party about a month ago.
Okay.
Shotgun Tom Kelly.
Well, I know him from LA.
Who
From
was on
Johnny K.
Sirius. Yeah, he does all these on the Channel, and Shotgun was at K Earth, and yeah,
Great guy.
He is a great guy. Absolutely.
But does he ever take the hat off? Does he ever take the hat off?
Yes, he does take the hat
Okay.
off. But you know, we went to radio school together. That's how long ago we
Wow.
go back a long way.
You left that out of your bio. You didn't mention radio.
He
Radio
was
school.
He was just well to get a license that nobody even cares about today. A first class, you had to have that first class license. Today,
And you also have to have
first class
you
license.
have to have your voice too. That helps. I could never do radio. You've got that radio voice, Dave.
Thanks, I appreciate that. But
Part 2 of Dave the Duke Sholin. Hang on, because we're going to do another episode, and you're not going to want to miss this. Two Guys and a Mic here on YouTube. Thanks for watching.